We're doing today is a little bit of a game. So our in-person individuals, y'all are a team, and then my Zoom individuals, y'all are a team. We are going to present a dilemma here in just a second, and then y'all are going to be given 10 minutes to talk as a group. Y'all are going to be discussing potential concerns related to this dilemma, and then potential appropriate next steps. After 10 minutes, one person from the group will come up and just present kind of your findings. And then Amy's going to provide corrections and feedbacks and, you know.
You know you're going to be right?
Did you hear that? That was Doug.
What do you say?
Do you think you're going to be right?
And then we'll score some points, you know, depending on what the feedback is. Okay, so we will have the winner today. If there's no questions, then we'll get started. So, no, we're not going to get started. We're gonna click back over here. Yeah. All right, everyone. So here's your first dilemma. Zoom individuals, I'm going to mute y'all on our end so then y'all can talk freely in just a moment. You're going to be discussing potential concerns, possible and appropriate next steps. Okay, there's some notebook paper over there as well if you need to write some things down. We're going to start a timer. And I don't have.
I do.
Okay. All right, ready, set, your 10 minutes starts now. We're doing our findings from the discussion for both groups. I didn't have any takers on the Zoom group, so I'm going to be their representative. Okay. You know, I do it because I love y'all. So what we discussed as a group is one of the first things is that we would tell our case supervisor. So they were all in agreement that we would notify our case supervisor of just the situation of what we saw and the concern of the boyfriend being around the child. Most of our group was like on board with, we're going to go just pay mom a visit. We're going to stop by the house because we most likely will have a good relationship built with her. It says that in there. And so we're going to stop by and say, hey, I haven't been able to get a hold of you. You know, what's going on? How are things? There was a little bit of talk about potentially observing when Johnny gets home at the bus stop and who is there to pick him up. If it's just mom, if it's mom and the boyfriend. And then there was a little bit of discussion, I think that y'all had, is that stalking, is that too much? So we discussed that a little bit. But we were pretty much on board with notifying our supervisor and then going by the house to make contact with mom to address the situation. And then when we get in touch with Johnny or see Johnny next, asking him about seeing the boyfriend or is the boyfriend around to hear it from the child. And that's what we came up with. Who would like to represent the in-person group? Anyone? You just have to stand up and tell us kind of a synopsis of what y'all discussed.
You've been pretty vocal.
Dana, wonderful. Okay.
Okay. So we talked about the first thing was we have a good relationship with her. So that gives us some flexibility of how we might respond to this. The questions we kind of batted around with each other was, would we just go to her house at 3:30 and see what was happening? Should we call the caseworker? That was pretty much shot down by everybody except caseworker and everybody.
I have to speak up for my caseworker. Yeah. He always calls me back and really fast.
I was gonna say I've only had my case for 3 weeks, so I can't attest to that. I've never had to call my caseworker. So call the CASA supervisor. I would certainly feel comfortable with that. And the question was who, you know, what did we do when we met her in the grocery store? Did we have a conversation with her about a visit? Could we come by? Should we should we have said that to her? We also talked about the fact that there was nothing wrong with Miss Jones having her boyfriend in the car in the parking lot of the grocery store because she's allowed to see him. She's just not allowed to see him when Johnny's there. So those were pretty much what we talked about, and trying to think what else. Anybody else remember other important things I'm missing?
Okay,
And then
wonderful.
after we're done, I have a question.
Okay.
Yes, after we finish.
After we get our points.
Right,
All
Rob?
right, Amy. Your turn.
Oh, it's my turn to weigh in.
Yes.
I think everybody had great points. I really appreciate that everybody understood the court order that's in place from the judge that mom does. It's her choice what contact she has with that boyfriend. Because what it says is that the judge said that he is not supposed to have contact with Johnny or be at the home. And so we know that Johnny's at school, mom's at the grocery store, and you see her get in the car with him. Is that a concern in her choices? Absolutely. But like this group had a whole conversation about talking with mom. If you have a good relationship with mom, then you just address it with her and say, hey, I saw you get in the car with him. How's that going? Has he made any improvements? Because his behavior was not cooperative in the case. And so he's obviously a risk to Johnny. Nobody asked how old Johnny was.
Oh.
Our group did, we talked
Oh,
about
they
it.
didn't. I thought that was my very first question is how old is this kiddo? Because that changes, I think, your approach.
Tell us how.
Is he 6 or is he 15?
Okay.
Would you look at the scenario differently?
Somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, you would. I would. And so, because of-
I'd be curious to ask this group how old they envision that child to be, because we didn't talk about it. When you read about Johnny, how old did you think he was?
Probably less than a teenager.
Yeah.
Child.
6 to 8.
Yeah, that's where I was. I don't know where it came from in my mind.
Yeah.
I do want to point out some of the concerns that I had reading this scenario, because yes, there are a lot of questions unanswered in this paragraph. One of my questions is, how long have you been trying to reach mom without any response? Because that's a problem. We have policies, our CASA standards are that you see these kiddos face to face once a month. If they're here locally, I will tell you, when you work with a case that is doing a monitored return, we as CASA staff are going to encourage you to do more than once a month. Because how are you really going to know what's going on? There was a lot that got them into our services, into our net, so to speak. And so how are you going to know whether that has really truly changed and children are safe back in the home if you're just popping in once a month? So I was very concerned about how long it's been since you've seen Johnny. Having a conversation with mom. I mean, Mr. McElroy, you said that you're probably the best one because you have a relationship with her, and everybody agreed. You as CASA advocates probably will develop a better relationship, not just with your kid, yes, because that is your focus, but also with these parents. Having the label that you are not CPS helps you tremendously.
You're not threatening.
Right, that's exactly right, Doug. And after you visit, no, I don't know that I heard anybody say it, I could have missed it. But, send in your email to your whole team. After you visit with Johnny and mom at the home, what happens, nobody talked about what happens if the boyfriend is at the house, what do you do?
Notify the attorney. Notify law enforcement.
If he's there, there's a court order violated.
If Johnny's also there, it doesn't say in there he can't be there ever.
Right, if Johnny gets off the bus and it says that mom meets the bus. Isn't that what it said? Something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
If mom's in the car with the boyfriend and they together meet the bus to pick up Johnny and take him to the house, we got a problem. We have a problem right now.
We put that in our report to you guys, and then y'all carry it back to the judge, don't you? And I'm right.
Any of the month.
Yeah.
You're saying there's great urgency.
Yeah.
If you have an emergency in front of your face,
Mhm.
yes. So your responsibility at that moment would be, number one, I would call your supervisor and say, hey, this is what's going on. And anybody, if you can't get your supervisor, everybody should have my phone number also, because if you can't get them, you call me. Your next call is to the CPS hotline.
Oh, to the hotline.
To the hotline, because we have a court order that's been violated in the midst of a monitored return. The judge and the court has said that this child is at risk, his safety is at risk if this man is around, and you just witnessed it.
Mhm.
I'm glad we did this, that had an attorney here. I mean,
You, as CASA advocates, after you're sworn, you are mandated reporters. And this is a violation of a court order that's in place in your case. You likely heard the judge put this order in place in the midst of one of your court hearings.
So they contact the CPS hotline and report that there's a violation of a court report.
Court
Order.
Mhm.
And
Just tell them
what
what
will
you do.
CPS do?
Oh,
Send out.
what CPS does is what CPS does.
And make them get the kid.
That's not for you to decide.
No.
That's not for you to decide. Your responsibility is to report.
Mhm.
And then I would also follow up with once you get home, shoot an email to everybody and say, it doesn't have to be a novel. And say, this is what happened today. I saw mom at the grocery store. We had a nice chat. I saw her leave with the boyfriend. I went by when Johnny got home from school. Mom and boyfriend were picking him up together. I saw Johnny get in the car, contacted my supervisor, and made a report to the hotline.
All right. Do you want to give them any points? What do you are fine?
Consensus on anything, but I mean, my opinion is, because we don't really know how bad the situation is. We know we have to get to the judge, and I felt, with some other people agree, that we should talk to the child's attorney and let him know that there's a potential issue here, and then he can take it to the judge and see what the judge does with it.
but you made me a believer. Calling the hotline.
Yeah.
That's right.
I think it's too early.
I do too, I don't think, no.
They can
All you
decide.
gotta do is just get to his station.
Yeah, but we're not in charge of rearranging everything. We should just tell the experts, make sure everybody's on board, send out the email. And I mean, be honest in the email that you just have the word of the stepmother. You don't really haven't witnessed it in yourself. You haven't heard anything from Kyle.
You can talk to him.
Good. Okay, anything else? I think we got this one in the back, so just kidding. Okay, so what we talked about is, and I think y'all have mentioned this, is we would definitely question what does losing it mean? We need more information on that. Questioning whether Kyle has seen any of the domestic violence portion. But what we determined our next steps would be to contact, well, first inform stepmom that we will absolutely be informing the team of this. Reiterating that boundary. Contacting our case supervisor. We also talked about and agreed that we would report it to the CPS line. That we would potentially, with guidance, advise stepmom of domestic violence services or supports. And then we went way down the line, and then we were going to depend potentially on how much he's seen and what losing it actually meant. Also have a conversation with Kyle about what healthy relationships look like and should be, and rating that. That's what we got.
My turn?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, first and foremost, I think you need to make sure that Beth, who is the mother, stepmom, knows that you are about to share this information. You cannot hold on to that. I would have a conversation with her. I really appreciate your trust and you opening up to me, but this is not something that I can hold on to. There are many concerns for safety, yours as well as Kyle's, but Kyle is also 16 years old. Assuming this is a normal 16-year-old boy, he absolutely should have the ability to speak up for himself. And you have the ability to have a conversation with him and say, hey, what's been going on? Also, this whole idea of dad losing it with Kyle during visitation, you should have already watched dad visit with Kyle at this point because you've been involved for almost a year. So surely you've watched that visitation. My question to your team would be, who's supervising the visitation? Why wasn't there a notification to everybody that dad is losing it? Again, like somebody said, this is Beth's side of the story. And so we don't know how accurate. And again, what is the definition of losing it?
Well, that doesn't say anything about the visitations being supervised.
Right, that was immediately one of my questions. Where are we in the case? How far along? And are visits supervised or unsupervised?
Takes a lot of pressure off if they're supervised.
Right, and then there should be somebody to answer for this.
Yeah,
You know,
I just assume they weren't. Be kidding.
we don't know.
And
From this scenario, we don't know.
would there be many cases that we were involved in where visitation was not supervised?
Yes, all of them. If you are working a case to return children to the parents, it's a process. And at some point, those visits will progress to unsupervised.
Right.
That's what the scenario was in the last case. The kid's back with mom, living in the home.
Mhm.
So how did you get to that point? You have supervised visits, then you go to unsupervised for short periods of the time. And then you go to like an all day and then a weekend, overnight, to moving them back home. Because we do transition plans to help everybody involved really kind of settle back in. So yeah, and our number one goal is to reunify families. And so if you're working a case where the children are in temporary custody of the Child Protective Services, then we're looking at returning those kids, and you're gonna progress. If the parents do well, then your children should progress to unsupervised visits. I will say, I have a case right now where there's a child on monitored return, and we have a group text every time she picks up that kid. And she lets us know where she's gonna be, what time she's gonna be where, and when she returns the child. She's very on top of it, because she also knows that any of us could pop in at any moment in the midst of this to check up on how everybody's doing. So yes, but this lady, Mother Beth, she's already admitted that he hits her. So we've got a problem. She needs to be, if she is willing to, she said she wants to get help, but doesn't want to disclose all of this. Which is it?
Yeah.
Well, I think most battered women always want help, but they're always scared of the situation. That I leave, he's just gonna come and find me somewhere. So that's why they buff it up.
Right, and so, a lot of times, Jared's not in here anymore, but he used to work with domestic violence shelter. And, I've heard many, many times that it takes 5 or 6 times leaving before it really takes effect in a domestic violence situation.
In other words, and even then they'll come back and
A lot of these ladies, you have to, they get tied into a situation where they're completely and totally dependent on their partner, on the spouse, financially, for basic needs, for everything.
yeah, most of those men are very controlling.
They have a tendency to be, yes.
You have to be careful too, because the most dangerous moment in her life is the one when she decides to take action. So it needs to be really carefully thought through and have an action plan. And, you can't just go in there and say, well, why don't you just come with me and I'll take you to the shelter? That's a very dangerous thing to do for her, not for you.
Yes, it is for you also.
Yeah, I guess so.
And that's not really necessarily a situation that I want you as a CASA to put yourself in.
Be bad.
She has to make these decisions independently. And your role is not to advocate for her, although you want the best for her, because your kid obviously loves her.
But here, there's no question that you have to let people know about it.
Absolutely, 100%. Yes.
DPS hotline?
You can,
Okay.
but if there's no children in the home, where's the child abuse or neglect?
Yeah, you don't know what's really happening. So let's say you're
Right.
holding the gun if you have CPS.
Yeah, and then, you are looking, one of my first questions is, where are we in the case?
Mhm.
How far along into the case are we? You've been with this kid for almost a year. So are we in the middle of a monitored return situation where we're moving Kyle back home? Because at this point, if that's the case, you're hitting the brakes completely. Like, we gotta know what's going on in the home before Kyle moves back in.
Okay.
Nicole's here.
I'm trying to get her to sit up here.
The only thing I have to add is service plan. So if these two adults are living in the same house, is Beth required to work services as a victim of domestic violence, such as codependency classes? Is she willing to work services? And has he been asked to do this? So as CASA, we're supposed to be tracking parent services. What is their service plan? Is this on his service plan? or is this something new? So if he's not addressing the services he needs to complete, then it would obviously halt the more term. We'd have to start looking for potential long-term options if they're not willing to get help.
Consensus.
We discussed obviously wanting to know how old the kid was, that would, affect things. We talked a lot about why is this child not placed with their siblings? We talked about why might she be running away? What are the triggers? How long is this the first incident? It's most likely not. How long has she been kind of using this as a coping technique? But our next steps that we determined and agreed on were we were all in agreement that we would not get her a cell phone. We would be very upfront with her. We're not able to do that. We're not going to do that. That we would check in on the schedule of or we would know how often is she visiting with her siblings. If that's not enough, trying to increase that or increase it by doing a weekly phone call, just trying to increase the interaction. We talked about encouraging her if she is staying in the shelter, providing her coping skills for loneliness, working on some of that, tips on how to entertain herself, figuring out what they offer in the shelter and trying to encourage her to get more involved in the shelter. And then also following up with her therapist about her loneliness, seeing if we can check on that progress with the therapist, but just kind of reporting the concern and maybe pushing her to talk more about that. And that's what we found. Who would like to talk for y'all?
Well, we're pretty similar to you.
Okay.
For sure, we all agreed in those all phone.
Yeah.
I think we're consensus to set up a schedule of phone calls with her siblings.
Okay.
Go to this placement and say, look, we need you to cut some slack here. This is what's going on. Please let her use the phone so she can call her siblings on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Great. And then the other thing is how can we put them closer together?
Yeah.
We don't know how far they're apart, right? How long the older ones are going to be in there. Maybe they're going to be away from the foster home in another year. Don't know.
Yeah, because it kind of sounded like they're real far apart, and then it was sounded like it's just down the
Kind of
road.
contradicts it. She's very close to her sister. Well, we said
Well,
We'll
like
just
they
blame
put her in
the
the shelter,
CASA.
maybe she was closer than in her foster home.
maybe.
But then you don't want to keep her in the shelter, that's not best solution, but we also talked a little bit about how to, not just maybe there can be a way to set up a daily phone call after homework for 30 minutes FaceTime or then how do we doesn't really tell us how often she's getting to visit them in person. How do we facilitate more regular visits? If they can't all be together, how do we get them together in person?
Yeah.
More often, is there somebody we can identify who could do that?
Great. Okay, Amy.
This one made me so angry. I'm gonna say that.
Okay. What made you angry?
Because why do we have one kid separated from three sisters?
Yeah.
That way I read that there also.
I didn't. Teenager. To her
It's just
sister's
another-
foster home nearby.
They're all placed in another county.
All placed in another county. So one of my first questions was, well, how did she get to another county? To a foster home in another county? Because you don't just walk a mile and you're in another county.
It says that she's close to that.
Nearby.
That's why I thought they're all apart.
And you accompanied staff to the foster home to persuade her to return voluntarily back to the shelter. I don't know shelter staff that's gonna do that. Do you, Nicole? Yeah, they're not gonna do that. So your job as an advocate for Yolanda, why is she not with her sisters? Number one. Number two, why can't, if it's nearby and even in another county, that's, I mean, even for us, if we're in Tyler and it's in Athens, that's 40 minutes, a 40-minute drive. Can you take her and y'all go do something together? You, as the advocate, can facilitate sibling contact. These children they have rights. They should be visiting regularly, together. If it's possible to do it in person, you should make sure that happens. Clearly, Yolanda is feeling isolated from her family and from her sisters. You can make a whole lot of assumptions. We don't know if she's the youngest or the oldest.
So the youngest.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
She's the baby of the family, but we don't know how old she is, do we?
Teenager.
Again, how did she get to another county by herself? I mean, she hitched a ride with somebody. We need to have a conversation with her about trafficking as well, because who's she getting in a car with to try to get there? She's running away.
Yeah.
Could you, as the advocate for all of these girls, talk to the foster parents for the sisters? I mean, think outside the box. Is there a way for you to help connect these sisters back together? Would foster parents be willing to help you, help all of us with that, help the family? Could the sisters have a sleepover on a Friday night at one of the foster homes? If the foster homes go to church together, could they pick Yolanda up on the way to church and take her with them? There's a lot of creative things that could be built in here to these sisters to help them reconnect and help Yolanda feel that she's more part of the sisterhood, because she's out here alone and acting out, which is not unusual, is it, Miss Sandra? Miss Sandra's had a kiddo that has acted out for many, many years. And she's doing well now.
Today she is.
But at some point, Yolanda is going to get in trouble for these behaviors, whether it's her safety or she's gonna start moving placements over and over. Because if she continues, nobody wants to keep her if she's gonna continue to run, because they can't ensure her safety. And at some point, if she's one of our kiddos here in Region 4, she will end up in Houston, in a placement in Houston, which is even worse.
How likely would it be that Yolanda was in this placement? Well, that would make sense. I was gonna say, could foster parents, if they had a sibling group and they request a relocation of one kid, are they likely to move all kids?
It all depends. It really all depends. But our responsibility is to these girls, and they have, you think about the trauma bond that these girls have established between each other. And if Yolanda is the youngest, then she is likely, again, all assumptions, she has likely relied on her sisters for protection and parenting and who knows what else. Safety. And so that's her safety net. That's her home base, are those sisters. And so we can get real creative about how to keep these girls connected and how to keep them together and bonded through their healing process.
We